London, 1964. A film set on the outskirts of the city. 200 crew members, cameras, lights, the whole machinery of Hollywood grinding away under gray English skies. And right in the middle of it, a director, red-faced, veins popping, screaming at the top of his lungs at the biggest movie star on the planet. Everyone freezes, 200 people holding their breath, and Sean Connery, 6 feet 2 inches of raw Scottish steel, just stands there, still, jaw set, eyes like ice. Not a single muscle twitches in his face. He doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't clench his fist, he doesn't even blink. What he does instead, in total, absolute silence, shakes Hollywood to its core. But to understand why that moment matters, you need to go back, way back, to the beginning. Act 1. The beginning, Edinburgh, Scotland, 1930s. Fountain Bridge, one of the roughest, poorest districts in the city. Cobblestone streets, cramped tenement flats, the smell of the brewery down the road soaking into every wall, every coat, every childhood memory. Thomas Sean Connery is born here on August 25, 1930. His father, Joe, works in a rubber factory. His mother, Euphemia, cleans houses for wealthier families across the city. Every shilling counts. Some weeks, every penny counts. There is no safety net, no fallback, no luxury of dreaming too big. At 13 years old, Sean quits school, not because he wants to, because the family needs him to. He gets up before dawn, every single morning. He loads milk crates onto a horse-drawn cart and delivers bottles door to door through the freezing Edinburgh streets. His hands are rough at 13, calloused, the kind of hands that don't belong to a boy. But wait, that's not even the hardest part. After the milk rounds, he takes a second job, polishing coffins at a local funeral parlor, smoothing the wood, making death look presentable, at 13 years old. Think about that for a moment. While other kids are in school, Sean Connery is spending his afternoons inside a funeral parlor, preparing boxes for the dead. He never complains, not once. That's the thing about the men forged in those Fountain Bridge tenements. Complaining was a luxury they couldn't afford either. Act 2. The first turn at 16, he joins the Royal Navy. He wants out of Edinburgh. He wants something bigger. He doesn't know what yet, just bigger. The Navy gives him structure, discipline, a way to direct all that raw physical energy building up inside him, but his body betrays him. Stomach ulcers, chronic, painful. At 19 years old, the Navy discharges him on medical grounds. He comes back to Edinburgh with nothing. No career, no diploma, no plan. He works whatever jobs he can find. Lifeguard, cement mixer operator, artist's model posing at Edinburgh College of Art. He even does a stint as a laborer at a building site. Here's the thing though, all that physical labor, the milk rounds, the Navy drills, the construction work, it builds something remarkable. His body at 20 years old is extraordinary. 6 feet 2, broad shoulders, posture like a steel beam. The kind of physique that stops people mid-sentence. In 1950, he starts bodybuilding seriously, training with an intensity that reflects everything else about him. Total, relentless, no shortcuts. 3 years later, in 1953, he enters the Mr. Universe competition in London. He doesn't win. He places third in the tall man's division, but someone in that audience notices him. Not the muscles, the way he moves. There's a looseness to it. A natural animal grace that has no business existing on a man that size. Most bodybuilders walk stiff, rigid, like their muscles are fighting them. Connery moves like something wild that chose to wear a suit. That observer points him toward a local theater production. A small role, almost nothing, but it's a door, and Sean Connery, the former milkman, the former coffin polisher, walks through it. Act 3. The Climb, the late 1950s. London theater circuit. Connery throws himself into acting with the same ferocity he brought to everything else. He studies, he reads. A man who left school at 13 teaches himself Shakespeare by sheer force of will. His Scottish accent is thick, unrefined. Theater coaches tell him it's a problem. Directors raise their eyebrows. The question hanging in every audition room is the same. Can a working-class boy from Fountain Bridge actually make people believe him? He makes them believe him. Small TV roles, stage work. building a reputation one performance at a time. No connections, no wealthy family friends making calls on his behalf. Just the work. By 1957, he's appearing regularly on British television, small parts, but people notice him. There's something in his screen presence that doesn't fit the mold of the polished, well-spoken leading men of the era. He's rougher, realer, more dangerous. Hollywood is built on manufactured charm. Connery carries something Hollywood doesn't know how to manufacture. Act 4. James Bond, 1961. London. Producer Albert Broccoli and his team are searching for an actor to play a character from Ian Fleming's spy novels. James Bond. Secret agent. The most sophisticated man in any room. Fleming himself has ideas about the casting. He wants a smooth, elegant, upper-class Englishman. The kind of man who went to the right schools and wears his dinner jacket like a second skin. What he gets instead is Sean Connery. Connery walks into that audition room in a cheap suit. His posture alone changes the temperature of the space. He sits down across from the producers and he fills the chair like he built it himself. He refuses the standard screen test process. Flat refusal. No negotiation. The producers watch him leave the building afterward. They see that walk, that panther-like stride across the London street below, and something shifts. Dana Broccoli turns to the room and says simply that he's the one. Fleming hates the choice initially. He calls Connery an overgrown stuntman, too rough, too working class, too Scottish, everything Bond is not supposed to be, but the camera doesn't lie. Dr. No premieres in 1962. The audience reaction is immediate and total. Fleming watches women in the cinema lose their composure at a man he called too rough. He watches men sit up straighter in their seats, trying to imitate that stillness. Within months, Fleming is rewriting the Bond novels, giving Bond Scottish heritage, acknowledging, without ever quite admitting it, that Connery didn't fit the character he imagined. Connery became the character Fleming had to imagine instead. Act 5. The Set, 1964. Now we come back to that London film set, 1964. The Bond franchise is the biggest thing in cinema. Connery is famous in ways that don't have clean language yet. Every magazine cover, every premiere, every country on earth. And with that fame comes a particular kind of director, the kind who built their career before stars like Connery existed. Old industry, old power structures, men who believed the director's word was the absolute law of any set. This particular director has a reputation, short fuse, loud, accustomed to actors flinching when he raises his voice. On this day, something goes wrong with a scene, a technical issue, a disagreement about approach. The specific details vary depending on who's telling it, but what happens next is documented by 200 witnesses. The director explodes, full public meltdown, screaming, pointing, the kind of tantrum designed to establish dominance in front of an audience. The kind of performance meant to remind everyone on that set exactly who holds the power. 200 people go very, very quiet. And Connery, James Bond, the biggest movie star on earth, does nothing. He stands there, completely still. That unshakable posture, that steely gaze, not a single word, not a raised eyebrow, not a clenched jaw. He just looks at the director for a long moment. Long enough that the silence becomes its own statement. Then he turns, calmly, and walks off the set. No drama, no slamming doors, no declaration, just absence. The director is left standing there, mid-tantrum, in front of 200 people who are now watching him. Not Connery. Him. The silence isn't uncomfortable for Connery. It's uncomfortable for the man still standing there with his mouth open. The reversal is total, instantaneous. A man spent all that energy trying to diminish someone else, and the only person diminished was himself. Within 24 hours, the story is everywhere. Within a week, it reaches every studio in Hollywood, not as gossip, as a lesson. Act 6. The Pattern. Here's the thing that makes this story bigger than one incident. It was never a one-time act. It was a way of living. Throughout the 1960s, as Bond made him a global icon worth hundreds of millions to the studios, Connery fought them at every turn, for control of his contracts, for fair pay, for creative input, for the basic right to say no. The studios push. He pushes back harder. No raised voice, no public breakdown, just immovable Scottish steel. By 1967, he walks away from the Bond franchise entirely at the height of its power. At the moment when every financial advisor, every agent, every sensible voice in his ear would be screaming at him to stay, he walks away. He told interviewers later that no amount of money was worth losing the part of yourself that knows when to leave. A man who grew up with nothing, who polished coffins at 13 to feed his family, walked away from the biggest paycheck in entertainment because his identity was not for sale. That's the thing about men built in real hardship. They have a reference point for what they can survive. The studios could threaten him with poverty, and he had already lived through poverty. They had no leverage. The frame holds when it's built on something real. Act 7. The long game. The years pass. The 1970s, the 1980s. While other actors scramble to stay relevant, Connery takes roles on his own terms. Some are hits, some aren't. He doesn't particularly care either way. 1987. Brian De Palma's The Untouchables. Connery plays Jim Malone, an aging Irish-American cop with the kind of worn, unshakable dignity that only a man with Connery's specific history could project authentically. He wins the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. He's 57 years old. He shows up to the ceremony looking like time itself has been working in his favor. Silver hair, the same posture, the same stillness. The audience in that room responds to something beyond the performance, to the accumulated weight of a man who never pretended to be anything other than exactly what he was. And then, in 1999, People magazine names him the sexiest man of the century. Not the decade, not the year, the century. He's 69 years old. There's no irony in the choice. The magazine is making a statement about what a certain kind of masculine presence actually is. It isn't youth. It isn't conventional beauty. It isn't the manufactured shine of the Hollywood system. It's the thing you can see in a man who walked away from a screaming director in 1964 without raising his voice. The thing built in Fountain Bridge tenements and Navy barracks and funeral parlors at dawn. Act 8. The End and the Legacy. October 31st, 2020. Sean Connery passes away in Nassau, the Bahamas. He is 90 years old. He had retired quietly years earlier. No farewell tour, no final statement. He simply stopped, the same way he did everything, on his own terms, in his own time. The tributes come from everywhere. Every actor who followed him into the Bond role, directors, presidents, people who never met him but felt that his existence on screen had told them something true about what a human being could be. Daniel Craig calls him the greatest Bond. The others say the same in different words. But the most telling tributes don't come from famous people. They come from crew members, from people who worked on sets with him in the 1960s and 1970s, from people who remember him stopping to learn the name of every grip, every lighting technician, every runner on the job. The milkman never forgot where he came from. The man who polished coffins at 13 never looked down at the people still doing the work that nobody applauds. That is the legacy, not the box office numbers, though they run into the billions, not the Oscar, not the sexiest man of the century title. The legacy is the walk across that London street in 1961, the silence on that set in 1964, the signed contract he tore up when the terms weren't right, the Bond franchise he walked away from at the height of its power. The legacy is a man who understood, from the very beginning, from Fountain Bridge, from the frozen Edinburgh milk rounds, that the most powerful thing you can own is your own frame. Nobody gave it to him. Nobody could take it away. Look at this photograph. Black and white. Sean Connery, circa 1963, leaning against a stone wall somewhere in London. Jacket open, not performing for the camera, just existing in it. The kind of ease that cannot be faked or taught. The kind that gets built, one hard year at a time. That expression on his face is not arrogance. It's something quieter, more permanent. It's the look of a man who already knows. Class is permanent. Grit is forever. If this story moved you, subscribe, hit the bell, leave a comment with one word that describes Sean Connery to you, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today.